So what we're going to talk about today is something that's going to come out in another week or so in CADWolf. Right now, when you solve an equation in CADWolf, everything is done in the browser. We spin up a second thread called a web worker and solve the equation there. This prevents the browser from locking up, and it actually handles some pretty large matrices. But we want to be able to handle big ones. We want to introduce some more complicated mathematics. So let's look at an example. You have a couple of random matrices here. They're each 100 by 100, which is 10,000 indices. We've added them together and then taken the sine of that and the cosine of that just to run through some functionality, because you have to step through those indices each time you solve these equations. When doing this in JavaScript, it's really not that slow despite the number of indices that you're having to go over. But since we're recording this video, that's a fair bit of overhead on the computer, so you do see a little bit of slowdown. So we'll add a third function to it, a sine, hint enter, and you'll see a little bit of slow time there as it solves. Most of that is due to the overhead of the recording, but you can see how you can get into a problem with larger matrices. So what we've done is have a Python code, and you can just go download the code, go to where it's at, hit that command there, and a server will spin up on your computer. Now when you solve an equation on CADWolf, it checks to see if that server is running, and if it is, it solves it there. And as you can see, it was solved and it returns that 100 by 100 matrix. From the user standpoint, once you spin up that server, you shouldn't notice any difference other than faster performance. This also lets us do some fairly complicated mathematics because we're able to bring in the entire numerical Python library. So let's look at a power distribution, which is a random number distribution. Our command for that is numpy_power. We give it its inputs. We'll give 5 for that value, and then we want a matrix that's 250 by 1. So this is something that if you're not running the server, you won't be able to do because it only has a Python solution. There is no JavaScript solution that we've implemented in CADWolf. As you can see, it's got a superscript of py there to show it's a Python-only function. And you can see it was solved here in our Python code on the server that you spun up on your computer. So let's just open up a quick chart. We'll add a data set to it and input that. So like I said, this is just a random number distribution. So that the formatting for this chart is also done on the Python side. So almost everything that you do right now on the browser, once you spin up that server, will be done on that server. This includes a lot of your part tree functionality. So let's say you've changed one of your base codes that sets something, and you have to go back in and update all those files here. Remember, if you change something, it'll show you it needs to be updated and give you the option to do that. Once you spin up that server, it'll actually let you solve it there. Like once you hit update this chart, everything will be solved there. NumPy, the numerical Python library, is quite large. We've linked to about 350 different functions that you'll be able to call from CADWolf if you've got that server spun up. So the reason that we're doing this is that we wanted to offer the user a place where they could solve larger equations, larger matrices, and also more complicated ones. The obvious solution was to let you solve equations on our server, but we'd have to charge for that. And once you've paid for a license, we wanted to offer you the option of solving those equations without having to pay more money. There might be certain equations that are just so large they have to be done on our server, but by doing this, you're allowed to use your actual computer instead of just the browser. And that opens up a great deal of more possibilities with NumPy, and you don't have to pay an additional fee for it. So look for this in the next week or two, as well as some additional updates to the platform.